Ladies, gentlemen and friends, you're all very welcome to this evening's launch of the Narrative for Empathy School Award. My name is Rachel Gleeson. I'm the Programme Officer for Narrative for Ireland, and I'll be hosting the launch this evening. To start with, I'll just ask you all to remain muted throughout the launch, as there's quite a few on the call this evening, so just to avoid any audio disruptions. The Empathy School Award that we're launching this evening is our new national initiative for secondary schools across Ireland. The Narrative for Ireland team have been working on this for about the last 6 months, and we're really excited to finally be able to bring it to you all. I have to say it's so great to see so many familiar faces here this evening, teachers who have trained with us and helped us to grow the programme over the last number of years. One of our remits is to grow a community of educators across Ireland who believe in the transformative power of fostering empathy skills in youth. We really value and appreciate each and every one of you and the work that you do. And we have designed the award to honour that and the work that you do with young people. As some of you will know, our training programme began in 2018. At that time, we focused on the Munster area, but since then we've moved and adapted the training to our online platform and have trained teachers in the 26 counties. Leitrim was the last county which we added just before Christmas, which was a really fantastic way to end 2021. So as we have a network of facilitators from all over the country, it would be really great to know where you're all calling in from today. So I'll just invite you all to just use the chat box to let us know where you are in the country or indeed in the world. I'm calling in from a town called Askeaton in West Limerick, and my colleagues James and Laura are both calling in from Limerick City this evening, and we have Oisin who's calling in from Budapest tonight. So it'd be great just to kind of see where you're all calling in from. And also just to note that if you use social media and want to share information about this evening's launch, we ask that you use the hashtag Empathy School Award, which James has put into the chat box for you all. So let's talk, I suppose, about what we're all here for, which is the Empathy School Award. Never has the world needed an empathy intervention more. You really only have to go online to see the isolation, the division, and the hatred that exists. Our work is all about instilling empathy skills in youth to help address these problems. Empathy education is known to cultivate vital life skills in young people. It increases awareness of diversity, it improves social skills, and it gives young people a sense of belonging. We know from research that young people are experiencing an increased lack of connection to their peers and their communities, resulting in higher levels of mental health issues and slower social and emotional development. We also know that social and emotional learning increases skills like being able to understand and manage emotions, set and work towards positive goals, and demonstrate empathy and appreciate the perspectives of others. So with all this in mind, we wanted to develop an award that would help to embed empathy education in schools. So a little bit about the award itself. It follows the format of having 3 levels of recognition for schools: gold, silver, and bronze. The criteria that schools need to meet vary depending on the different levels, but include things like having a number of teachers trained and delivering and logging a number of story exchange programs within the school. All the information that you'll need about the award is on our website, narrative4.ie, and we'll be holding information sessions to answer any questions that you might have over the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for those. So that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of things that the schools will need to do to achieve the award. And I'll now introduce you to our first guest speaker. So she's a broadcaster and producer, Louise Cantillon. Louise trained and worked as a secondary school teacher before beginning her broadcasting career with Spins Out West and TG Cahir. She also presents the popular Spinner Skull. It's a weekly radio show for Leaving Certificate students. And most recently, Louise has appeared on our screens as presenter for the Junior Eurovision. We're delighted to report that she is also our ambassador for the Narrative for Empathy School Awards, and we're delighted to welcome her here this evening to help us to launch the awards. So hi Louise, welcome. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And thanks to James and everyone in Narrative 4. I mentioned off air, but I feel ambassador is such a hefty title to have. So I'm very honored. And I think that everything that you're doing is incredible. And I'm so thrilled to be able to hopefully raise awareness online and use my platforms as well to shout about the importance of empathy. So I'm really delighted to be included and to have that title, ambassador. So thank you so much.
Fantastic, and thank you for agreeing to be our ambassador. That brings me into my first question for you, which is what attracted you to agree to the role of ambassador for the Empathy School Award?
Great question, and I'm sure the same as everybody who's on this Zoom call tonight. The word empathy was the main attraction, and the idea of that being such a vital life skill. I think first and foremost, obviously, for your audience who are student teachers, students, for anybody who's, you know, working or part of a school community, empathy is so important. But I think it's a bigger thing than that, and the discussion is bigger, and it's a skill and a vital skill that so many of us maybe haven't ever been taught, or, you know, maybe something that we pay enough attention to in our lives. So having an opportunity, like I say, to be involved with people who are shouting about empathy for the right reasons and spreading awareness about it and educating young people and educating people online and through social media, I think there was no flaw in being part of something like that. In fact, it was only going to be a benefit. And for me, I guess I don't work in education at the moment. I work predominantly in media, but I like to find any opportunity I can, even through my radio show Spinner Skull, to marry the two and to maybe promote education on through media as well. And I think this was a perfect opportunity to do that, to couple media, having a platform on social media, and promoting something as important as empathy as a life skill for students.
Fantastic. And I mentioned earlier that you're a former secondary school teacher. Could you tell us a little bit about your teaching career?
Yeah, so I know there'll be some teachers on the call now that will be laughing and say, can she even call it a career? But I thought for 4 years, I studied in UCC, and I guess I was very young starting college. So I'll go back to that point. I was 17 when I started in UCC. Not ideal for the fake ID scenario. Wouldn't recommend. If you've any 17-year-olds, hold them back. I know, I'm only joking. So I was very young going out. When I qualified as a teacher, I found myself teaching Leaving Cert Irish at 21. So I was in, I suppose, an unusual situation where empathy could have maybe gone both ways. You know, the students were looking at this young one in front of them, teaching them Leaving Cert Irish, and I was also looking at students that were maybe only a year or two younger than me in the classroom. So it was certainly a baptism of fire, but I loved it so much, and I got my permanent job and did everything that I think young teachers think they're supposed to do. And then 4 years into the job, I felt that maybe I had passions elsewhere. So obviously, as you know, the Department of Education in Ireland is a great country. You can apply for a career break. And I decided at that time, which is 4 years ago now, that I would do that. And I haven't looked back since. So I've 1 more year to take on my career break, and then I'll have to reconsider. But I guess what I would say about my teaching career is it was short-lived. Definitely 4 years was a starter, but it really set me up for like such I'm trying to find the right words to say it, but it really gave me a brilliant start for my career in media. And I think you'll find that a lot of people who work in media come from teaching backgrounds, and all of the skills that you learn as a teacher, I think, stand to you so much when you maybe go on to try your hand at something different, whether that's like something else you do in life, a side hustle, or another job altogether. So I suppose then, just to mention as well, that when I did fully try to immerse myself in the world of media, so many of my opportunities came off the back of having been a teacher. So last year I launched Spinner Skull, which was started off as a 6-week radio series and ended up being a 14-week radio series with Norma Foley and Simon Harris fighting over airtime. You know, you couldn't have actually written it. So I guess it's been a brilliant starting point for me for so many reasons, and I'm very grateful. And I think I will continue to be grateful that I have a qualification as a teacher and that I can still be involved in education.
Fantastic. And what a fantastic resource Spinner Skull is for that Leaving Cert age group. So as we were chatting about earlier, empathy and how important empathy is, and as you know, our work is all about empathy and instilling empathy skills in young people. and the award feeds into this. So why do you think empathy skills are important to teach to youth today?
So as I mentioned, I just do think it is a vital life skill for everybody to have, not alone the youth, because I think there's a lot of older people as well who might need to revisit the idea of empathy or learn about it for the first time. So I think there is a lot of people who need to learn about empathy. I also mentioned to you off air, but I'd love to share an anecdote about empathy. When I think of the word empathy, the first time I think I learned about it, I was in UCC in first year in 2011, and the great Eamon Ryan, if there's any GAA fans, you'll know Eamon Ryan. He has actually since passed away, but he coached the Cork ladies to that historic 10 All-Ireland victories in a row. He was an incredible man, a former principal in East Cork, and he taught the GAA module when I studied PE in UCC. And I remember thinking at the time, my background wasn't in GAA. I would have been better at like dance and gymnastics and more creative side of sports. Well, actually the GAA players will argue they're very creative, I suppose. But anyway, I wouldn't have been great at GAA. And I always remember Eamon Ryan as an older lecturer sitting us down and saying the most important thing as a teacher is empathy, and that idea that whether you're coaching a sports team or teaching a class, nobody goes out to play a bad game. Nobody goes out to kick a wide when they're trying to score a point. You know, nobody comes to school to have a bad day. And I think that really stuck with me in my head. And I thought, how unbelievable that a man who has been so successful isn't hung up on the idea of competition or who can run faster or who's fitter or who should make the starting 15. His whole basis of being a successful or a good teacher was based on that idea of empathy and being empathetic to the people in front of you or the people you work with or the members of the team you coach. And I just thought, like, what a fascinating take that he had on it all. And I think from then on, anytime that I hear the word empathy or someone talks about being empathetic, or often if you see online trolls or people after GAA matches or any matches will jump on a team and say, oh, they're shite, they were useless, sure, they didn't have it in them, they went out to lose today. And I always remember thinking, isn't it gas that one of the most successful coaches and managers of our time would have never taken that approach. His idea would have always been, no one goes out to have a bad day. And I just thought that for me was like the essence of empathy. And I suppose that's a roundabout way of answering your question, but I think that clearly being empathetic leads to good things, to put it basically. And I think that if students can learn to be empathetic and teachers can also learn to be empathetic, we'll just have a better environment for learning and for happiness and kindness, and people will just ultimately be happier to be where they are.
That's it, exactly. And Joe, that's a great story, and I think it just really shows the impact of teaching empathy to young people, and what it can do like that when you're young, and you learn about empathy from somebody like a teacher or a coach, the impact that it can have on you even years and years later. So that's fantastic. And finally, I'll just ask, what do you hope for the schools and the young people to get out of the award?
Oh, I hope that empathy can become a buzzword and something that people are proud to say that they practice and that they can represent. I think it would be really cool that students, like, the way the young scientist team will wear it like a badge of honor and they're like, I was on that team. I think it would be amazing to see young people go around and say, I'm a rep for empathy, and this is how we should be, this is how we should treat people online, in school, in the corridor, in the classroom. And I think that if it can become something that students acknowledge as something that's really important and cool and trendy and the right thing to do, then that'll be the catalyst for hopefully so much more growth and positivity within school communities.
That's beautifully put, Louise. And that's exactly what we hope that the award does. So thank you so much for being here this evening, for being the award ambassador and believing in the work that we do. So I'd like to thank Louise Cantillon, everyone.
Thanks a million. Thanks for having me.
So along with the Empathy School Award, we're also launching a new empathy education unit this evening that makes up one of the criteria for the awards. So with COVID-19, our facilitator network had asked us to create an outdoor program. And we're so pleased to roll out this new unit, the Narrative 4-kilometre Walk and Talk Empathy Challenge. So the challenge takes students on a 4-kilometre outdoor walk where they pair up with another student with the aim of getting some exercise while connecting through a facilitated discussion. And again, all the information that you'll need for this is on the website, narrative4.ie, and you can register there. And also to note that each participating student gets a pack with a handbook that's all about well-being and self-empathy. They get some Narrative 4 merchandise and a certificate of completion on the end of the challenge. So like I said, just check out the website for all the information that you'll need on how to register for that. So moving on now to our next guest speaker of the evening, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jennifer McMahon. Jennifer is the founder and director of the I Teach Teaching for Inclusion Research Lab at the School of Education in the University of Limerick. She has a particular interest in the science of evaluation and implementation of evidence-based practice to applied settings. And here at Narrative 4, we've been working really closely with Jennifer over recent months as we're working together on an evaluation project measuring the impact of our programs. She's going to speak to us a little this evening about the importance of empathy skills, social and emotional learning, and related research. So I'm delighted to introduce you all to Dr. Jennifer McMahon.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want to thank you and Narrative 4 for having me speak briefly tonight. I'm really delighted to be joining the call and supporting this really worthwhile initiative. So for those that don't know me, Rachel's done a great job of introducing me. I do work in the area of youth mental health and well-being, and particularly in school settings. And I suppose I'm really passionate about exploring creative ways that we can support young people's well-being. As many people on the call will know tonight who work directly with young people, you'll be acutely aware that youth mental health is a key issue for young people. And national and international research tells us that mental health issues such as anxiety and depression in young people are increasing. So we have a great survey in Ireland. It's a landmark European study, the My World survey, which is run by Jigsaw and researchers in UCD. And they've highlighted the range of issues facing young people today and how those are negatively impacting on them. And like, this is something that you undoubtedly experience every day in your classrooms. As recently as December, I had the privilege of speaking with secondary school students in focus groups about their mental health, and they told me how issues of bullying, cyberbullying, prejudice, discrimination, poor self-esteem and lack of confidence were contributing to the rise in their mental health problems. And they talked really eloquently and really hard-hittingly about how they want schools and teachers and adults around them to support them in navigating these important issues. And I know that schools are already doing so much around mental health education. Well, mental health education is so important. I mean, understanding the signs, symptoms and pathways to care is a really important area of focus. We're moving to an understanding that the development of social and emotional skills can really help support young people to successfully navigate the world and the issues that they've raised. And research has shown us that these skills are fundamental to positive mental health and well-being. Things like understanding ourselves, our abilities, using self-control, setting goals, maintaining positive relationships, making positive decisions and having empathy for ourselves and others is just a huge, they're critical skills in navigating the increasingly challenging world that we live in. In addition, like, adolescents are at this critical stage of development. They're exploring their identity, they're developing their thoughts, habits and behaviors for the future, and they're looking for ways to connect with their peers and the wider world. So in this context, the Narrative 4 program is really coming into this very opportune space at a time when young people are at this critical juncture of development. In addition, the current curriculum set out by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, it emphasises social emotional learning as a pathway to well-being, with connection being a central tenet of this curriculum. So empathy is this powerful and fundamental human characteristics that involves in both understanding and experiencing another person's emotions. So it's different from like understanding what another person is thinking. It's really about the feeling and understanding the emotions of another person. So like many other skills and attributes that we nurture every day, it is something that can be learned and enhanced. As Rachel said to us earlier, and she highlighted that it's never been more important in today's world. And over the last 2 years, the importance of social and emotional skills have been forefronted both in practical classrooms around the world and in research. And it's become increasingly clear that in a pandemic and post-pandemic world, that connection really is at the heart of education. And I think many of us miss that connection to our students when we move to an online space, and we realized how important the relationships with our students and with our other colleagues was so important. But, you know, aspects like fostering empathy is also fraught with difficulty. So we might agree it's important, but with a packed curriculum and a wide range of competing activities, it can be really difficult to find concrete ways to develop it in our students or to know which programs will achieve the criteria set out in the curriculum. So this is the research and practice gap that Narrative 4 are working in. So through the Storytelling Exchange Programme, we're looking to increase students' ability to understand the feelings, the beliefs and the values of another person and to engage with one another in a respectful and caring way. The opportunity for both the teller and the listener to reflect on the story deepens the impact and the experience can be truly transformative. I believe it holds much potential for positive development of empathy in students, leading to better outcomes for all students, and research around the area of storytelling and narrative identity kind of backs this up. So for example, a recent meta-analysis which summarized many studies on the topic showed that bullying was negatively associated with effective empathy, the ability to understand another person's emotions and respond appropriately. So importantly, I think another positive aspect of the Narrative 4 training is that it all supports teachers in social emotional development, which I think is so important in developing the school-wide connections where both the well-being of the staff and the students is valued. From a personal perspective, I'm delighted to collaborate with Narrative 4 on the research to evidence the impact of the storytelling programme. I think I'm on trend, Louise. You know, I'll definitely be wearing the empathy badge and using the empathy buzzwords. So to begin with, we're exploring the impact of the Teacher Facilitator programme. And if anybody here tonight would like to participate in telling us about their experience of the Teacher Facilitator programme, please contact either Laura or myself or any of the team to let us know that you'd be willing to participate. We really want to get an insight into your experiences of the programme. To finish up, I just want to applaud the schools that have implemented the Narrative 4 programme in their schools and encourage other schools to take up the challenge afforded by the hugely worthwhile initiative being launched tonight. I think the Narrative 4 Empathy School Award really honours the work that is ongoing in schools and recognises the more intangible work that schools often engage in but are not widely recognised for. And I wish the team at Narrative 4 and the schools that you're working with all the best in this valuable and much needed work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for reminding us about the importance of empathy and why we do the work that we do and the research behind why it is so very important. So thank you so much for being here. And like Jennifer said, if anybody wants to get in touch to be part of that research, please do. We'd be delighted to have you on board. So before I finish up, I'd like to quickly thank our incredibly generous funders, without whose support we couldn't do this work. In particular, we'd like to thank the JP McManus Benevolent Fund, Rethink Ireland, Lorna Byrne Children's Foundation, and the Department of Rural and Community Development. And just to remind you all that to register your school to take part in the awards and for the school pack, go to narrative4.ie. You'll receive things like posters, leaflets, merchandise, and everything that you need to run the award in your school. And so that brings our evening to a close. We'd really like to thank you all for coming, ask you to spread the word about the award. We'll be posting our social media links in the chat box so you can share to your own network, and we'd be really grateful if you could tag us. We're so glad that you could join this evening, and keep an eye on our social media for updates about those information sessions and about the award itself. So thank you all again for coming, and take care.